words we're saying have a double meaning. So anytime you hear anything about traveling shoes or chariots or wheels, somebody's getting ready to run. And so you take a Negro spiritual. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. Swing low, sweet chariot, coming for to carry me home. That chariot is movement. That chariot is swinging low, picking you up, putting you on that Underground Railroad, taking you somewhere to freedom. So when we sing those songs, it's like, something's getting ready to happen. So I looked over Jordan, and what did I see? Jordan, that was metaphoric for the Ohio River. A band of angels coming after me. Those conductors coming to help you, coming forth to carry me home. So they had all kind of little messages. And the slave master would hear us singing and say, oh, don't they sound pretty happy tonight? Next day, 2 or 3 people gone because we put that message out. We talked about wade in the water, wade in the water, children, wade. Wade, wade, wade in the water, 'cause God's gonna trouble the water. So we stepped in that water because the dogs can't pick up your scent. We had all these songs that said it's time to move, it's time to go by the waterway, it's time to follow the North Star, it's time to start looking, it's time to start traveling, it's time to start getting ready to cross over that Jordan into freedom.
Southern African Americans uproot their lives and head north, seeking to escape the violence, terror, discrimination, and agonizing poverty of the Jim Crow South. Black migrants primarily moved to urban enclaves, bringing with them their families, their religion, and their musical traditions. This rural Southern religious musical culture mixed with Northern urban influences to give birth to a new sound, gospel.
Thomas Dorsey, who was named Georgia Tom, we credit him as being the father of gospel.
Thomas Dorsey left Atlanta for Chicago during the Great Migration, along with thousands of other migrants who made the journey north.
Thomas Dorsey arrived in what was really a Renaissance period in Chicago. There was a flourishing blues industry, a burgeoning jazz industry, and there was also the growth of small religious institutions, storefront churches in Bronzeville, which was the center of Black life in Chicago. And so the proximity between the jazz and blues clubs and the churches led to a great deal of cross-fertilization of African American culture in Chicago.
Dorsey was no exception to this cultural fusion. He began to write inventive new music, setting sacred words to the popular harmonic structure of the blues and jazz, including his most well-known composition, Take My Hand, Precious Lord, penned while mourning the death of his wife and their infant child.
Thomas Dorsey works with singers like Mahalia Jackson to get churches interested in the music that he's creating. It is both a spiritual imperative for him as well as a commercial one, how you sell music.
3 skip line, we felt fine, the monkey to the back of the 3-step line, live road, the monkey choke, and all in heaven, and little red book, a hand, clap a hand, sing along, sing a little song for my mama told me if I was good, and she would buy me a rubber dolly, but someone told her I kissed a soldier, and she would buy me a rubber dolly. We take 9, the good for wine, the monkey get back on the street, got line, live road, the monkey get choked, and all in heaven, like a little one folk, clap your hand, sing song, sing a little song for my mama told me if I were good, and she would buy me a rubber dolly, but someone told her I kissed a soldier, and she would buy me a rubber dolly.
Slave Songs of the United States. Wow, published in 1867.
Yeah, 2 years after the end of the Civil War.
What do you know about the book?
Well, very little. You know, there is something that caught my attention, and it's in the first paragraph. If you don't mind, I'd like to read it to you.
Okay.
The musical capacity of the Negro race has been recognized for so many years that it is hard to explain why no systematic effort has hitherto been made to collect and preserve their melodies. And it got me to thinking, could this be the first book of Negro spirituals published in the United States?
And that would be a really interesting thing. Sounds like that's your question, in fact.
Well, that's one of my questions. And then I also want to know, you know, who were the people who collected this music? You know, what was their motivation?
Old days. Some of the games are new games, and some of them are games that I taught my children, such as Old Lady Come from Booster, Shoot Turkey Shoot. Them is the old-time games that my father and mother taught to me, and I would like very much to keep them alive.
Mama lama kuma la vista. Mama lama kuma la vista. Oh no 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 la vista. Oh no 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 la vista. Eeny meeny Josephine I'm a meeny at the Pacha kuma lama X Y Z. Eeny meeny Josephine I'm a meeny X Pacha kuma lama X Y Z. Mama lama kuma la vista. Mama lama kuma la vista. Oh no 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 la vista. Oh no 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 la vista. Eeny meeny Josephine I'm a meeny at the Pacha kuma lama X Y Z. Eeny meeny Josephine I'm a meeny at the Pacha kuma lama X Y Z. Mama lama kuma la vista. Mama lama kuma la vista. Oh no 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 la vista. Oh no 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 la vista. Eeny meeny Josephine I'm a meeny at the Pacha kuma lama X Y Z. Eeny meeny Josephine I'm a meeny at the Pacha kuma lama X Y Z. Mama lama kuma la vista.
There's one thing about these old games I love so much. I call them a family game. A get-together family game. A lot of children these days, they like a piccolo jank and go other places to with these big movie places at, but my children, I train them to be home. And they have this is good time home with the people, the rest of the kids who go to these piccolo and hurt one another, fight and kill one another, but this is one big happy family. They stay together, play these games, start in peace, and they end in peace. And that's why I always like them to participate what they have along with some other. That some other could learn and keep them alive. I would not want these to die. And just what I know, most of my children just would know just what I know.
By 1860, there are roughly 4 million enslaved Africans in the United States. Forcibly transplanted to a new land, they've brought with them a rich African heritage, including songs. Adapted to reflect the experiences of life of hard labor on plantations, these slave work songs, laments, and shouts of protest evolve into a new musical form, the spiritual. The spiritual will in turn become the wellspring for generations of musicians who will create the blues, gospel, jazz, and the protest songs of the 1960s. Now, Avery Clayton of Los Angeles, California, believes he may have discovered a vital link to this important music.
I was just going through some boxes in my mother's collection and came across this book and noticed the date and read the first paragraph, and I knew that it was something special.
It's an old-time song we used to sing. Way by and by, way by and by, we gon' have a good time. Way by and by, in this slavery land, in this slavery land, respecting to have a good time, way by and by.
Dr. Norris has long known about this book and says its songs are deeply personal.
My granddad was a Baptist preacher. I heard them sung authentically all my life, and they're just right here in my heart.
To the enslaved African, what did these songs mean?
These songs were everything. He had to sing about his condition. Being sold, his family being separated, he had to sing to keep his plain mental bearing.
He tells me that plantation owners often forced enslaved Africans to attend church to hear the message of Christianity, a message that missionaries carefully tailored to justify slavery. But the enslaved men and women took this new language and created their own spirituals, songs that often contain coded meanings, bringing messages of hope and sometimes visions of escape.
My father was a fisherman. That's how come I make net. Because my sister and I, we used to make all our father net. When you go and cast these fish net, every time you cast a net is a sound to it. Roll, Michael, roll. Roll, Michael, roll. Hallelujah. Roll, Michael, roll. Hallelujah. Roll the boat ashore. Hallelujah. Roll the boat ashore. Hallelujah. And he take the net and he cast them. And he cast the net and he say, jump in the jolly boat. Hallelujah. Jump in the jolly boat. Hallelujah.
Come sit down and tell me about your evening.
Dr. Norris explains that even though the words were from Christianity, these songs have their roots in Africa, where music was infused into every aspect of life. In the Americas, the enslaved Africans were forced to adapt.
They weren't allowed to use instruments they brought with them. They took them from them. So what, they improvised with what? Hand clapping on the side of the horse. Improvise. I look at them and I marvel over how we got through all of this. But how we got through it all by what? Singing.
No more
I worked 5 long years for one woman. She had the nerve to turn me out.
Booster. She had 2 hands and the rooster. The rooster died, the old lady cried. She couldn't get the eggs like we used to. Oh my, you look so. Oh my, you look so. Who's been here and I've been gone. 2 little boy with the blue cap on. Hang on the hickory stick. Hanky tinky down my shoe. Pop a little boy gonna buy me back. Pain in my head, ranky tanky. Pain in my neck, ranky tanky. Pain in my shoulder, ranky tanky. Pain in my side, ranky tanky. Pain in my head, ranky tanky. Pain in my thigh, ranky tanky. Pain in my knees, ranky tanky. Pain in my legs, ranky tanky. Pain in my foot, ranky tanky. Pain in my toes, ranky tanky. Pain all over me, 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 ranky tanky.
From miles away, you could hear the shouting, the singing, and you knew where it was coming from, and you couldn't wait to get there and join the crowd. They would start like at Christmas Eve and go right through to New Year. But during the week, they would be shouting in houses, different houses all over the community. They wouldn't stop, and people would be coming from all over. Florida, California, all over the United States, wherever they had migrated to.
A ring shout is a kind of dance-like movement practiced by, these days, mainly folks from the central part of the Georgia coast, came from Africa. It did fuse with Christian religion and biblical references, but not always. There were some that were somewhat secular, some referred just to the hardships of slavery. It is a way that the folks who practice it can honor their old ancestors.
You know, when they done done all the harvesting, they done banked all the taters, they done grind the cane, and the shouters had their time. And they would come to the church and they would shout.